Hi, it's Maria, and I'm doing another Forgiveness to Love video. It's number 18, and I'm really excited about sharing this one with you tonight um, because this is going to be page one of, um, of all the people that I have to forgive. And it's a really long list. And I'm sure if you actually sat down and you wrote your list, which maybe you'll have a better idea of how to do that after you hear mine, then you can really, you can see just how extensive that list is and how much work we have to do in order to free ourselves of that. Because again, when we forgive, it's not about anybody else. It's about freeing ourselves of the cords, the energetic cords, and any of the heaviness and negativity that we have by holding on to all the infractions, all the misdeeds, all the things that people have done to us that have really hurt us. And so we just need to forgive them and just move on with it. Doesn't mean, I know I used to think that forgiveness was, let's hug, and I understand, and everything's fine. And then I learned that because that just didn't feel right at all. And I thought, but I wanted to do the right thing, right? Well, forgiveness is not about that. Forgiveness is just letting it go, like understanding that they didn't even, maybe they didn't know any better, or maybe they just didn't care, or whatever. But it's about loving them for, being the divine beings they are, and yet understanding that they are dealing with their own wounds and their own issues, and keeping them away. It's drawing boundaries and just saying, I can love you, but I'm going to love you from back here. I'm not going to get any closer to you. And so that really helped me. I hope it helps you. But I wanted to share with you what some of us who have seen injustice and then unabashedly spoken up about it, right? Well, what we've endured at the hands of the dark. And there are many, many people who have tried to come forth and say things. And what I have heard, and a couple journalists have actually told me this, is they said once someone realizes that they're being stalked or followed, or once they hear echoes and things like that on their phone, and they realize that someone is listening, they basically just give up because it's just not worth the torture. And you know what? I didn't give up, and I have been tortured. And so, anyway, I wanted to give you an idea of what it is that many of us go through, and to you may see to whatever extent maybe any of this holds true for you. But yeah, many of us just had absolutely no idea why we were stationed in certain situations, right? I certainly never imagined the deluge of the aftermath of um, of being right there in the thick of it, in the thickest and the densest and the heaviest mud on the planet, right? And so yet when we know what we've heard and what we've seen and what we've felt, then you know, then we wanted to speak up about it, and yet we knew nothing of the cost of our speaking our truth. And so many people who have decided to tell the truth have been so mercilessly betrayed. And so even by those whom we wanted to help, right? And much less those whom we trusted. And God only knows those whom we so loved. And so people are by nature selfish, And especially during times when there is so much instability and insecurity in the world, people are kind of like holding on for dear life. And so they do things that perhaps at other times, if they felt more secure, they wouldn't engage in. Or perhaps that's just their personality and those are their wounds. I mean, we never know. And it's not up to us to really psychoanalyze these people anyway. But sometimes, we're just trapped in the eye of the storm where all the waves from all these different directions, are just slamming into each other. And then you have these monster waves that decimate all but the few of us who've kind of like had the strongest of footholds to flop and flounder, kind of like those Bob toys. Do you remember those toys? I don't even know if they still have them, but they're like kind of like oval, like tall ovals. Maybe they're about 3 feet high or something. And there's like sand at the bottom of them. And so it's weighted. And so little kids will go and they'll punch it, and the toy will flop over. And then all of a sudden it'll flop back again. And sometimes it flops over and then it flops over the other way so that it can come back to center. And so that's how many of us have felt like those Bop toys, we just get hit and then we flop and then we get hit this way and then we flop. And so anyway, it doesn't matter how, it just doesn't matter how much resistance we have in our path, because many of us, once we go down that path, we have no choice but to kind of, like the teeter-totter, you go up and down and wait, you go up and down. And so we realize once we're on that path, we have to kind of go all the way. You can't just say, okay, well, this is getting a little difficult. Well, I guess you can, but for most of us, we realize that that's part of our life path, and that's kind of why we're here. And so, as long as we can keep our heads above the water, no matter what the cost, we realize that that we it's kind of our elan vital, that's French, and that's for our creative force, because it's that creative force within us that keeps us motivated to stay on our path and to keep us standing. And so when I remind myself, and anyone who takes issue with my speaking, I remind myself that this is my story based on the truth, my truth of my life. And yes, I've been the poster child for the woman who was not allowed to speak, right? Because I had a gag, like the worst gag you've ever imagined. And it was totally unlawful. But nonetheless, I had that gag. So when I could have more appropriately been the poster child for legal reform, because that is to spin it in the positive way, and so we can share what we know rather than just be muzzled, like a dog. And so unfortunately, at the time that I began speaking up about what I had experienced, no one really cared. And so here's my disclaimer for all of my videos. What I'm revealing is my perception of the facts as they've been presented to me. And so all the attorneys hired by my family and others can just cool their jets and relax, because I'm not interested in maintaining that defendant status that in another like bogus lawsuit orchestrated to destabilize me and to keep me in poverty, when in fact I am an heiress, yes, to a huge fortune comprised of multiple inheritances that have been deliberately and fraudulently stolen from me by an ex-husband, a sister, and a son. And so, and all those others that have been paid in order to shield them from their due. So, yeah, that is my disclaimer. And so now I really want to go on and talk to you about the things that I have experienced so that you can better yet understand if, in fact, you've been experiencing any of the following. And I'm sharing my story in an effort to educate others as to how best to kind of navigate your way through the plethora of issues relating to life on our beloved planet Earth. Right? It can be tough, but I think it gets worse before it gets better, and I think we're really about at the bottom. I'd say it seems like everybody you speak to, when I just say, "Oh, I know things are going to get better," they say, "Oh, I have never imagined that it was going to be this bad," and yet I really am very optimistic that things are turning around, even as we speak. I absolutely believe that, and so anyway. Um, let's see, what else can I tell you? And yes, I was told by journalists who of others who have experienced, a fraction of the harassment that I've experienced, and they just said, you know what, I'm just not going to deal with this stuff. But it was so pervasive, actually, where everyone and everything and everywhere I went, someone would be lying or stalking or betraying or sabotaging, you know, someone's downfall, whether it was mine or someone else that I became aware of. And so, how some people have dealt with that is they've just withdrawn from society, right? And they've gone into hermit mode to escape the craziness. And God knows I've thought of doing the same. Um, and yet at the same time, I feel so blessed to have been made aware of the things that go on that I feel I have a responsibility to share that, share what I've seen and heard with you. And so, in terms of surveillance, we think of, oh, the cameras, somebody has to actually hold a camera and take a picture of you, or it's candid camera. You don't think that people have all these recording devices unless it's a joke, or unless they're going to actually show you that they've taken your video or whatever, and then you have to sign a release for them to use it. But now in this day and age, surveillance is just a fact of life, right? And so we just have to just understand that that's what it is. And so I had to forgive the three people, in my life, the ex and a sibling and my son. And I had to forgive their attorneys, because many times attorneys are the ones involved in hiring the surveillance firms, so that when someone is on the witness stand and someone says, "Did you ever hire someone to stalk, your ex-wife, or to stalk your mother, oh, God forbid, or to stalk your sibling?" They can just say, "No, I don't know anything about it," or "No, I've never spoken to it, or spoken to a surveillance firm," because it's their attorney that hires them, and then the attorneys don't have to admit it. And so I had to forgive the three that I talk about, and then the attorneys, and then I had to forgive the creepos. I call them the creepos because these are individuals who make a living by harassing people, and so it's just like causing pain. And then in my case, there were stalkers and there were hackers, a lot of computer hackers and phone hackers and other experts in that area. And the companies that I dealt with, who both followed me physically as well as virtually, and they were responsible for installing and maintaining the surveillance equipment, right? So, and not only was my face photoshopped to be put on other bodies, but there were cameras in my living room and in my bedroom, and in my bathroom. Now, how would you like a camera in your bathroom where, where they would capture during your most private moments, um, or your most intimate moments when you're dressing, or if you're, you know, uh, in bed with your partner? So, and then these moments on video were then captured and they were shared to embarrass and humiliate me and others too, my partner and anyone else who was in my home who decided to use my restroom. I mean, it's ridiculous. But there was also surveillance on airlines. When I would fly, there would be the lights at the bottom would just be flickering by my seat, and the lights on top sometimes would just be turning on and off. And then when I'd get the LED screen, there would be coded messages that only I would understand the connection. Certain images were clues just for me, and then in my seat assignment, generally it would be an aisle seat. That would be the only thing available, which I didn't mind. But what would happen is other people that were the stalkers, the creepos, were seated either uh, either next to me or behind me or kitty corner from me. And so either they could then they had proximity to access my signal on my Mac or my phone, or they'd be kitty corner to me and then they could just actually read my computer screen. And so, and that's also true of being in a restaurant, right? And so when you have, and I could just tell, I would know when the waitress was going to seat us at a certain table because there would be like a couple sitting there or whatever. And sometimes you just feel it. It's our intuition. And that's the beauty of being awake, is that you sense things, right? And so people would be placed there to overhear conversations, or there would be an empty booth next to you and then somebody would come and sit there, and so you wouldn't even give it a thought, right? But people were there with their recording devices, or your phone was a microphone, right? But they were actually there just to kind of, I'm not sure if it's more about listening to the information or if it's more about just kind of spooking us. But in any event, they'd have relatively benign faces. And I always used to wonder, like, what did these people believe that they were doing? I mean, did they think that this was like 007 espionage, high level security? I mean, I must have appeared to be quite the threat, right? At the club, like playing tennis or golfing, right? I mean, really, think about it. Or driving my children to their piano lessons or to their karate lessons, or going downtown to a museum opening or something like that. I mean, oh, there she is. She's the threat. And so, oh my gosh, we're going to try to spook her because yeah, we want to stalk Maria. I don't know. It just seems so ridiculous. And then like I would actually have this vision in my mind, because when I'd be driving my kids to all their lessons and stuff, and then I'd like rush back, and I can change from my blue jeans and my hair back in a ponytail, to like black tie chic faster than Clark Kent could like find his tights. And so I used to laugh because I used to think, oh, I've got, let's see, 10 minutes now, and I have to transform. And so I thought, why are these people like following me? I'm just living my life. But it was just creepy, and then, oh, and then the worst of it all though is the tampering of the food. That, because that's lethal, that can be fatal. And I think that's the whole point of it, especially since given the history of my parents. And given my history, where in Florida, when a friend would stop by, and we'd sit and have a glass of wine and watch the sunset or something like that, and then I'd be so sick, or I'd awaken the next morning and I would be in my bed and I wouldn't even be able to remember what happened. And I thought, gosh, I had one glass of wine, or no wine at all. I had tea, you know, and and maybe some, if they brought a pastry or something. Um, and I would be I couldn't remember what had gone on. So I realized that, my food and my water even were tampered. And sometimes, you can kind of taste it, but sometimes you can't. It's a very, yeah, it's a very mild taste. And so sometimes I couldn't detect it. And so, and you don't always want to be tasting everything and going, oh, is this poison? Is this poison? I mean, my gosh. But what it does is it psychologically terrorizes you, because when you fear your nourishment, you basically fear life itself, because you can't have one without the other, right? And then the cameras and the microphones, they allowed the creepos to know when you were going out and when you were coming back, so that they could make their way in while you're gone and do whatever it is they were going to do to your food and stuff. And I'll tell you, in restaurants, my food has been tampered as well. And I remember specifically um, sabotaging the sabotaging of my food in restaurants. So I am loath to order a meal at a restaurant, at least while this insanity seems to be in high gear on the planet right now. Because I have actually seen, I've recognized a car of one of my stalkers in a parking lot, in a restaurant parking lot. It was a fast food burger restaurant. Not so fast food. It wasn't like a McDonald's, but it was like a higher quality burger restaurant. And I recognized the car that I had noticed had been following me for a while. And I pulled in there. I pulled in the parking lot, and then I saw the guy get out and go around the back of the restaurant to go in the back door. And I walked in the restaurant and I placed an order. And then subsequent to my placing the order, there were, I don't know, maybe 6 people that came in after me, and all of them got their orders and they left. Meanwhile, Maria's still standing there wondering, where is this order? And then I realize I see the owner is standing there with his back to me, and he's like flipping burgers or whatever. And then somebody else comes in from the back holding something. And so while he's preparing my order, I don't know if they were like pouring something on it or what, but it took 2 of them and they were whispering. And meanwhile, so many other people had already gotten their orders. And then by the time it was for mine, I guess they were trying to figure out how exactly they were going to do it. So it wasn't I don't know if it was like a vial of liquid, or if it was, I just don't know what it was. I couldn't see. But yeah, I got that and I kept praying on it, and I kept saying, how should I eat this or should I not? And and I was dumb enough to taste it, and yeah, it didn't serve me well to taste it. But in other places, um, I know that substances have been given to either directly to the chef or to the server, and certainly to the bartender if I'd order a glass of wine with dinner, because I like to do that. But you know, it's not a usual thing. But if I'm out having fun, I might have a glass of wine, and so which I think it's time to give up. I think in times of where we are so open um, it doesn't seem to agree with me anymore, and so that's a good thing. I don't really have any other, I don't have any other addictions to anything, and so, but that was kind of the last thing that I enjoyed. Of course, I like dark chocolate, but that's about it, you know. And we all kind of like a little bit of sugar every once in a while, like a cookie. But anyway, and then another time that my food was tampered was I was in a hotel in Carlsbad, California, and I won't mention the name. I'll just mention the initials. HI. I bet you can kind of figure it out. But the hotel manager, I was staying there for a while, and the hotel manager and the staff invited me to go to the hotel next door because they were having like a wine and cheese or a reception or something like that. So they said, walk on over with us. So I did. And then the manager opened up, well, actually, he gave me one of those um, little mini bottles of white wine and a wine glass. And so I poured it in there, and I was drinking it. I don't think I even had any dinner that night, and I didn't taste any of their hors d'oeuvres because most of it was fried and stuff. And so, anyway, but that night I awakened in the middle of the night and I had like such horrible chest pain, and I had severe spasms in my leg muscles and my calf muscles and my feet, even. And it kind of even traveled down from my neck to my wrists and my arms and my wrists and my hands, and then I thought, oh, this is a neurotoxin, and it's going in through my nervous system. It's a poison, and I was really disgusted that that it just seemed like it was just such a group effort, to get me to drink this beverage. And so I figured either chemists or engineers, were hired to tamper and repackage those that little wine bottle that sickened me so much. And I didn't eat any of the breakfast because even the little yogurts can be repackaged, and so I don't eat much prepared foods. But I did remember after I had that incident with the wine and the muscles seizing, I remembered it was December 13th because I wrote it down and I took pictures. December 13th, 2021. I had tracked the stalker that was on my phone and on Google Maps, and it showed his whereabouts in my navigation system. And I could see where he was because he was using a cloned phone of mine, right? So that he could track me and listen to me and everything. And so his first stop was at an engineering firm in the Carlsbad industrial complex, which was about 10 minutes away from the hotel I was staying at. And he actually went there at about 9 p.m. and he was there until midnight. Now, tell me what a guest in the same hotel as me is doing at an engineering firm from 9 p.m. to midnight. And then after that, from midnight to 3 a.m., he went to another location. He went to another, I don't know if it was a manufacturing plant or some kind of an office or whatever, and maybe it was for him to get whatever else he needed in order to duplicate the mini wine bottles. So I don't know if it was like the cap or any of the closures, you know, that that they needed in order to have the same, so it would look exactly like the same like the others, but maybe um, they were all a little different. I really don't know. I didn't pay much attention other than after it happened. I thought, that's, and then I actually tracked the guy coming from that second stop back to the parking lot of the hotel. And in fact, and it was after 3 o'clock in the morning. And in fact, I remember when I first checked into the hotel, shortly thereafter, I heard the person on the across the hall, and he went into his room. And then I don't know if it was the next day or a couple days later, he was walking, I was walking, and he was walking, and he went into his room. And, uh, he smiled or something, and I smiled, and I thought, oh, that was a little weird. And he was the stalker. And when I wrote that in my journal, uh, all of a sudden he changed rooms, and then so I didn't see him again. But it's interesting how, with the cameras, they even know what you're writing in a journal, and certainly what you're typing on your laptop or whatever. But and then another one, I figured uh, well, since my ex was certainly not on this planet anymore, and he had my son and my sibling kind of carry on uh, when he could no longer. Um, I thought it was very interesting that I went to check in a room, and usually my rooms are by the exit so the people can come in and they can just go in my room when I'm not there. Um, or they're by the front desk so that the front desk can alert the stalker, oh, she just came in, oh, she's just leaving, or whatever. But I was walking to my room, and it was at the very end by the exit door. And I'm walking, and all of a sudden I'm sloshing. And I realized it was like my feet were all wet. But it was dark carpeting, and it didn't look any different. And so I realized that there was sewage coming up from the adjacent room, and everything, and the carpet was all full of sewage. And so I couldn't even get into my room for the suitcases. So I went to the front desk and I said, this is what's going on. And they said, oh, we'll just go buy another pair of shoes, and we'll pay you for it. So I went and bought a pair of really inexpensive gym shoes, and and then I gave them the bill, and of course they just ignored me. They just said, oh no, we can't do that, we've changed our minds, or something like that. But anyway, I thought, oh, that's so that's just so stupid, right? Um, and then this, you won't even believe, is the tampering of food in grocery stores that I've experienced. And so whether it's so I had to forgive my sister, I had to forgive my ex-husband, I had to forgive my son, those three. I had to forgive the attorneys that are involved, and I had to forgive the creepos that are actually doing this stuff. And then when it gets to the hotels, you have to forgive the hotel manager, right? You have to forgive the staff. You have to forgive these these people that don't really realize why they're stalking you. They're just paid to do it. Um, and you have to forgive, like in grocery stores, you have to forgive the employees there. You have to forgive the stock people. You have to forgive the checkout people who know that this is going on, or they're alerting you that you're walking in. So like the what do you call it, the people that stock the shelves, or the people that stock the produce department, whether it's tainted fruit and vegetables that they bring out when they know that you're on the way to the store, um, or whether it's meat or poultry that they have right there and it's on sale, and you think, oh, wow, this is just too good to be true. Well, it is too good to be true, right? Because they can't guarantee anything that's on sale. And so, because it could be damaged, it could be old, it could be this, it could be that, it could be pesticide laden, it could be anything. And so, or they know that I buy the organic dark chocolate bars with very little sugar in them, whether they're 100% cacao or 92% or whatever. Generally I try to buy the 100%, but all of a sudden those will be there, and so you think, oh yeah, well, they got a shipment of those in just for me. And so what happens is, unfortunately, is they're trying to stalk and trying to to sicken those of us who might be their targets. They also end up sickening other um, innocent innocent shoppers, right? Because how fast can they really go load the shelf and then pull it all off and put put untampered or non-tampered um, food there, right? I don't know, but we don't know. When we buy something, we don't really know if there's been an extra spray of pesticide on it, or if there's something, yeah, that isn't quite right with the meat or the vegetables. If we just don't know. And so I have seen my stalkers go actually in to I've seen them stand next to my cart and like act like they're writing notes of things on the shelf, but in fact they're writing what's in my cart. Not that they couldn't see from the cameras, but I guess this was easier because um because then I would see them go into through the doors where the stock people go. So they go back where the stock is. And I'm thinking, that's rather brazen, isn't it? So like this is a really pretty extensive um, network, right? If they contact the managers of the grocery stores and and then all the people that work in the back there. Oh, hey, I'm here to just kind of present some tampered food in your store. Um, you just think, wow, this is deep. This gets very deep. People are. It's not. It's not an isolated thing. I think that there are many, many people. You hear of certain areas where the water supply is contaminated, and there's an increase in the number of um, of cancers, right? Whether it's lymphoma or leukemia or a solid tumor type of a cancer, like a brain or breast or something like that. But also, I think so. We have the surveillance. We've talked about that. We've talked about the restaurants and the food and the grocery stores and things like that. And now it's the relationships that we have where it can be so painful because I was staying with a family that I truly loved. And um, and the woman, I had actually helped her through 2 surgeries and a job loss and boyfriend issues and things like that. And so one day, um, one day I was in the kitchen and I was in the casita actually in the back, and she brings this pot of water, and I'm thinking, there's water here. Now her water was filtered, but I would go and get it in the morning for my coffee or tea. And so she brings me this thing of this big pot of water, and I thought, well, that's strange. She's never done that before. But I thought I turned it around and I said, oh, that's very kind of her, right? Well, that night, um, I had the worst case of chills, and I had it was a horrible fever, a spiking fever, and my whole body just trembled. And then I had the flu for a couple of days, and I thought, wow, the people that we live with, for whatever reason, can want to sabotage us. And I think we don't want to think that people are like that. And yet, the whole point of this is just, it's about being aware because we can shut our eyes and we can say, oh no, it doesn't happen. But really, who are we hurting? We're hurting ourselves. And so we need to just be awake. We need to open our eyes and see that, yes, there are narcissists out there. There are psychopaths out there. There are really wounded individuals out there. And so we just, we don't know. Sometimes when people are in our lives, we don't know if they're being blackmailed or we don't know if they're being bribed. One is because they fear it. And the second, the bribe, is because they're just greedy. There's that avarice that is boundless, right? And so we don't know if they're doing it because for whatever reason. And so I know that in one of the families, one of the homes where I was staying, there was their bathroom. And so when the family would go in there, they'd go in there, they'd turn on the light. It was dim lighting. And then they would exit, and it was still the dim lighting. When I would go in there, it would start off being dim lighting, and then all of a sudden, very, very slowly, it would just get brighter and brighter and brighter. But it was so subtle that you couldn't tell until at the end you thought, hey, this is usually really dim, and now it's like it seems like it's like a fluorescent light. It was just so bright. And then you realize that even the children, they know that they're on camera somewhere, so then they're acting like they're on stage. And some of them are really good little actors and actresses, but it's just too bizarre. And so then the other thing is just appointments are sabotage, no matter what they're for. But even like, and also the cell phone providers, they're they are many times uh, approached because the account will be in your name, but also it'll be in somebody else's name. So when you call, they'll ask you. Some of the less savvy representatives will say, "Oh, is this Mr. So and so or Mrs. or Miss so and so?" And you'll say no, and then they'll say, "Oh, I see," and then they'll get the name right, but they won't know which name. Is it the saboteur's name, or is it yours? And so I had one on with my cell phone provider, and I had the app, and it just kept saying, "Hi, Bob." And so I'd call them, and they'd say, "Oh, delete the app, and we'll make sure that it's fixed." And yet what would happen is the next time it would be, "Hi, Bob," and then they'd escalate it to like their technicians, and then it would still be, "Hi, Bob." And I thought, "Oh, forget it. I know Bob got this phone. He's got my cloned phone. Maybe he's even the stalker." Who knows? But I just realized that I can't worry about that. And the same thing is true when we hire people to help us with our computers, right? And so we just have to just be careful. And even like with taxes, I know my taxes were misfiled. And we don't even think about stuff like that. And then, okay, this is the last part I'll tell you about, but this is a biggie. And it has to do with medical and dental appointments.